Right, hello everybody. It's been a slight delay. Haven't read for a few weeks. And now we come back to, I believe we come back to Veshtila. The last one we read was Vasumitra, I think. And I had not remembered to start with the number 21. Veshtila is number 26. So we're in the next set of 10 dedications. At the end of the number 20, after this, the 10 dedications are set up from the Chinese commentary. By means of the 10 practices, one can perfect worldly arts. That was 1 through 10 of government and education, yet one is still unable to remain in the ocean. Oh, 10 through 19, or 10 through 20, 11 through 20, I guess. Based on, so early arts of government, yet one is still unable to remain in the ocean of both birth and death, neither without emerging or sinking, based on unobstructed action in the real universe by the universally good practice of inherent Buddhahood. Therefore, the 10 dedications are needed. So starting with 21 begins with the 10 dedications, and we're in the middle of them. So each of these teachers represents one of the 10 dedications, which we read a long time ago when we were in that section, book, whatever it was, book 20 or 18 or something. So the 10 dedications are needed. So now we start with them. And then Utpalabhuti in Pruthurashtra saw the eminent performer, Sudana saw the eminent performer Utpalabhuti and realized dedication to saving all beings without clinging to any image of beings. Wonderful. That's a higher level of compassion, which sees no being, but just feels empathetically the suffering, and then works blissfully to liberate them anyway, without even considering them to be a being needing compassion in some constructed way or personality-holding way. And number 22, Sudana went to the city of Kutagara, saw the mariner Vaida, if you remember, and realized indestructible dedication. Then in number 23, Jayotama he went to see and saw and realized the dedication equal to all Buddhas. That's the third dedication. Then he went to Simhavijambita, the lion stretching, lion yawning, lion stretching person, Simhavijambita. And he saw the nun Simhavijambita, you'll remember, and realized the dedication that reaches all places. Then finally, I think what the last one we did was number 25, the woman Vasumitra, who was like a movie star who was able to attract all beings with her incredible beauty, but then produce in them, simply by being in her presence, complete dispassion and freedom from lust, which is marvelous. And that was the dedication of infinite stores of virtue, number 25. And I believe now we start with Veshtila, number 26, where Sudana went to Shubha Parangama, that is, transcending into beauty, the name of the city, and saw the householder Veshtila and realized the dedication adaptively stabilizing all roots of goodness. Chinese commentary is so useful because it connects each of the samadhis of these 50 teachers, or 52 teachers, to one of the stages that we saw in the early part, when it was all under the Bodhi tree. And now this is a regular person, Sudana, regular Yepi, entering into the realm of reality that we're dealing with. Okay? And Veshtila is called the embracer, illustrating the vastness of his knowledge and wisdom, which embraced all things. And this layman had before him a shrine where there was placed a sandalwood throne without an icon on it, the idea being to illustrate how Buddhas and sentient beings have no sign of origination and destruction, using the shrine with the sandalwood throne as a device to indicate this symbolically, to inform us that our own essence and manifestations are like the original formless Buddha on the throne. When you understand that essence is space-like, and find that appearances are like projections, you open up enlightened knowledge and vision. Then there is no beginning and no end, no present and no past. Thus Veshtila said that when he opened the shrine, he attained liberation without complete extinction, absorbed in the infinity of the lineages of Buddhas. Okay, that's the one we're going to read. I love it. So happy to be back with you, Flower Ornament, and with you, Tom Cleary, dear Tom Cleary, who translated this, who is now translating in a pure land, maybe, waiting to descend to some worthy planet where at least a few people will be able to rise to the sutras, rise into the plane of Buddha speech. Free speech, that is. Total free speech. Okay, so number 26, Veshtila, page 1273 in the book, if you have the book. Then Sudana went to Veshtila's house in the city of Shubha Parangama. I love that. Parangama means to go beyond or transcend. And Shubha means virtue, but also beauty. Because virtue is beauty, and beauty is virtue. They're the same thing, really. So beauty is transcending. Paying his respects to the householder, he said, Noble Veshtila, noble one, I have set my mind on supreme perfect enlightenment, but I do not know how to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings. I hear that you give enlightening beings instruction. Please tell me how to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings. Veshtila said, I have attained an enlightening liberation called not ultimately exhausted. To my way of thinking, no Buddha in any world has ever does or will become finally extinct, except as a docetic device. I love that. That's also taught in the Lotus Sutra by the fact that when the Buddha teaches the Lotus Sutra, he first invites the stupa of the Buddha Prabhutaratna, profusion of jewels, which has the mummy of the Buddha Prabhutaratna, who is supposedly extinct and yet has a mummy sitting in the stupa. And then he speaks to the Buddha because he's not dead. He's not extinct. And he invites the live Buddha, seemingly live Buddha, Shakyamuni, to sit next to the seemingly dead Buddha, Prabhutaratna, to then declaim the Lotus Sutra that every atom is a golden Buddha, and every subatomic particle and every space between the subparticles is filled with pure Buddha energy. So there's no extinction whatsoever. So Veshtila is teaching that. I love that. And that's the dedication of inexhaustible virtue, I think. He said, Veshtila, adaptively stabilizing all roots of goodness. Yes, you stabilize it because you realize it all is Buddhahood. Everything, not just you especially, but everything is Buddhahood. And you are completely stable within that, if you follow me, because every one of your atoms is, And that doesn't mean that you're still not completely free to feel like a jerk, or to feel depressed, or to have a headache, or whatever. But nevertheless, every neuron that's feeling that way is already a Buddha. That's just so cool. That's the Samantabandha, the totally good, the total goodness way of being. All right. So then Veshtila said, I have attained an enlightening liberation called not ultimately exhausted. To my way of thinking, no Buddha in any world ever has, does, or will become finally extinct, except as a docetic device. When I opened the door of the shrine of the Buddha, sandalwood throne, that's the empty throne. I have a good friendly colleague, a nice colleague in Cambridge, Massachusetts, named David Eckel, who wrote a book called The Empty Throne. Very nice. I attained an enlightening concentration called Manifestation of the Endless Lineage of Buddhas. I entered this concentration in each mental moment. So he's always in samadhi, this Veshtila, and in every moment understand many kinds of excellence, because he's very stable in the excellence of being infused with Buddha plasma, if you will. He says, Then Sudana asked, what is the sphere of this concentration? And Veshtila replied, when I am in this concentration, all the successive Buddhas of this world system, beginning with Kashyapa, Kanakamuni, Krakuchanda, Vishvabhuj, Shikin, Vipashin, Tishya, Pushya, Yashottara, and Padmottara, appear to me. And there's like, what is that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, typical set of 10 out of 1,000 actually. And he doesn't, Vishvabhuj and Shikin, he doesn't mention Shakyamuni, who should be number 4. It's a different set of 10 Buddhas, but never mind. In the continuity of vision of Buddhas, by the continuity of the succession of Buddhas. In one mental moment, I see 100 Buddhas. In the next moment of awareness, I find 1,000 Buddhas. Then 100,000 Buddhas, 1,000,000 Buddhas, 100 million, 1 billion, 1 trillion, 1 quadrillion, 1 quintillion. I immediately become aware of the succession of appearance of untold numbers of Buddhas, of as many Buddhas as atoms in the continent, as many as atoms in untold Buddha lands. I also comprehend the order of preparations of those Buddhas' initial aspiration, their spiritual transformation on achieving the aspiration for enlightenment, the purity of execution of their various vows, their purification of action, their fulfillment of the transcended ways, their attainment of all the stages of enlightening beings, their perfection of the attainment of tolerance, their conquering of demons, the supernal manifestation of their spiritual transfiguration on becoming perfectly enlightened, the variety of purity of their Buddha lands, the variety of their development of sentient beings, the variety of their audiences, the variety of their auras of light, the majesty of their teaching activities, and their accomplishment of the miracles of Buddhas. I also distinctly, the greatest miracle of which is Anushasana, which means instruction, giving instruction to wild, egocentrist living beings. I also distinctly remember their teachings, take them up mindfully, examine them in action, analyze them, follow them with discernment, and elucidate them with wisdom. I also perceive the successive Buddhas of the future, beginning with Maitreya, seeing 100 Buddhas in a single mental instant, then 1,000, and so on, uninterruptedly seeing as many Buddhas as atoms in untold Buddha lands. I also see the order of their aspiration and preparation and so on, and distinctly remember their teachings, take them up mindfully, examine them, follow them, and elucidate them. And just as I see the succession of past, future, and present Buddhas in this world system, so do I also comprehend the succession of all Buddhas in as many past and future world systems in the 10 directions as atoms in untold Buddha lands. I also comprehend the order of the aspiration and preparations of those Buddhas, and I comprehend the unbroken continuity of the successive incarnations of those Buddhas. I am also aware of the succession of Buddhas of the present in all worlds, in the 10 directions, beginning with Vairochana in this world, emanating as Shakyamuni on this planet, this universe, emanating as Shakyamuni on this planet, incomparable, accessible to faith, and the vigorous resolution of enlightening beings, increasing the energy of enlightening beings, unsurpassed by any worldlings, individual illuminates, or enlightening beings who have not reached that sphere. In a single mental instant, I see 100 Buddhas. In the next instant of awareness, I see 1,000 Buddhas, continuing thus without interruption until I meet as many Buddhas as atoms in untold Buddha lands. I see whatever Buddhas I wish, whenever I wish, and I hear all that has been, is being, and will be spoken by those Buddhas I meet. And I take up what I hear, remember it, examine it in action, analyze it, follow it with discernment, and elucidate it with wisdom. I know this enlightening liberation of ultimate non-extinction. How can I know? So I do know this enlightening liberation of ultimate non-extinction. How can I know the practice or tell of the virtues of the enlightening beings who have attained unconscious, instantaneous knowledge? who attained instantaneous knowledge of past, present, and future, who dwell in all concentrations in the space of an instant, who are imbued with the light of those who realize thusness, who realize the equality of all thoughts and imaginations, who are focused on the equality of all Buddhas, and who abide in the non-duality of self, sentient beings, and Buddhas, whose realm is the manifestation of principles, whose nature is clarity, whose workings of knowledge pervade the network of worlds, who dwell unwavering on the seal of the teaching of all Buddhas, who are in the range of knowledge making known all realms of reality, who are in the range of knowledge conveying the teachings of all Buddhas. South of here is a mountain called Potalaka, where an enlightening being named Avalokiteshvara lives. Go ask him how to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings. Then Veshtila said in verse, Go, Sudana, to Mount Potalaka in the ocean, a pure abode of the valiant, made of jewels, covered with trees, scattered with flowers, complete with gardens, ponds, and streams. On the mountain, the steady, wise Avalokiteshvara dwells for the benefit of the world. Go ask him the virtues of the guides. He will teach you great, wonderful means of attainment. So Sudana paid his respects to Veshtila and went on. Number 27, Avalokiteshvara, who exemplifies in this case, although nowadays he's understood as the compassion of all Buddhas, as are all enlightening beings, actually, really, but he saw him. But anyway, he realized the dedication according to all sentient beings through compassion. That's the one. That's the seventh dedication. Potalaka is a mountain where many small white flowers grow. This represents the modesty and compassionate behavior of the enlightening being. Yes. So it's one of the three. He runs to living in the ocean of birth and death, helping beings compassionately. That's Avalokiteshvara. This is one of the three laws that make up the virtues of Vairochana, the illuminator Buddha. The other two are the subtle principle of the spiritual body, represented by Manjushri, and the myriad acts of the body of knowledge, represented by Samantabhadra. So that's really interesting. Instead of Vajrapani for the set of three here, you have Samantabhadra, who's like Vajrapani. Vajrapani is his esoteric form. Sudana saw Avalokiteshvara on a plateau on the west side of the mountain, which was adorned with shining springs and streams, thick woods, and soft, fragrant plants spiraling to the right, covering the ground. West is the direction associated with killing and punishment, meaning a place calling for the practice of compassionate education. Because sunset, that's why, I guess. It's also associated with domination, with power, responsibility. The great compassion of the enlightening being is paramount, intent on the benefit of beings and not dwelling on personal rewards. So he lives in the material world of sentient beings, represented by the mountain side. The springs and streams represent the clear shining of the heart of compassion. The woods represent the dense shade of works of kindness. The fragrant plants represent fine words that please people, while spiraling to the right symbolizes sentient beings going along with the teaching. Sudana saw Avalokiteshvara sitting on a diamond boulder, Vajra boulder that is, surrounded by countless enlightening beings sitting on jewel rocks. This symbolizes adamantine knowledge going along with compassion, their subtle functions meshing without disturbance. So that's a wonderful Avalokiteshvara. So let's go. Reflecting on the teachings of Veshtila, remember, on the non-extinction of all Buddhas, entering the treasury of zealous application of enlightening beings, remembering the power of mindfulness of enlightening beings, remembering the power of the succession of enlightened guides, realizing the unbroken continuity of Buddhas, remembering the progression of the hearing of the names of Buddhas, following the principles of the teachings of the Buddhas, entering into the array of collective practice of the Buddha teachings, intent on the exclamation made by Buddhas on becoming perfectly enlightened, following his attention on the inconceivable action of Buddhas, Sudana made his way to Mount Pottalaka. So what Buddha said upon enlightenment, as revealed in the Lalita Sutra, some versions. Sabshi Ursel Turtle Dumaje Dudzi Tower Chuching Koanye Sulatenjang Gor Mindube Mima Magtisel to Chikperne. So he said, deep, peace, clear light, trouble-free, uncreated, like an elixir of immortality, deathless elixir, is the reality I have experienced. Whoever I teach it to, they won't get it. Better I don't speak and stay peacefully in the forest garden. That's what he said. So that's what he was thinking about. In other words, in a way, beyond words, in the deep peace, clear light, untroubled, uncreated, deathless reality. Climbing the mountain, he looked around for Avalokiteshvara and saw him on a plateau on the west side of the mountain, which was adorned with springs, ponds, and streams, sitting wakefully on a diamond boulder in a clearing in a large woods, surrounded by a group of enlightening beings seated on various jewel rocks, to whom he was expounding a teaching called Light of the Medium of Great Love and Compassion, which concerns the salvation of all sentient beings. That's wonderful. By the way, this is something everyone can do, a practice everyone can do. Every one of you can do this, which I just learned just the other day from my friend, the Venerable Tenzin Priya, the Venerable Bhikshu, mendicant Tenzin Priyadarshi, the Indian Tibetan Buddhist monk. And he said when Atisha, because I didn't read Atisha's biography, that's so bad of me. Atisha, when he was in Tibet, and I presumably in India as well, but he told me when he was in Tibet, whenever he saw anyone, the first thing he would say to them before hello or anything was, "Have you been kind today?" That's what he would say. "Have you been kind today?" That's the first thing he would say. "Have you been kind today?" He would ask them. And this is like the first thing His Holiness said when he came, the Dalai Lama said when he came to America first. In 1979, he said, "My religion is kindness." That's what he said. So he was like an Atisha for us. So wonderful. And in a way, my Geshe-la was like a Dharma Rakshita for us. The one who didn't speak English so well, but he did speak English in this case. But he taught the blade wheel of mind reform. Okay. Climbing the mountain, he looked around, he found him, yeah. Transported with joy on seeing Avalokita Ishvara, his eyes fixed on him, his mind undistracted, full of the energy of faith in the spiritual benefactor, thinking of seeing spiritual benefactors, that's Kalyana Mitra, spiritual friend, virtue friend. Spiritual benefactors as at once seeing Buddhas, seeing Buddhas in the spiritual benefactors. My dear spiritual benefactor, thinking of reception of the multitudes of all truths as originating in spiritual benefactors, thinking of the attainment of all virtues as deriving from spiritual benefactors, thinking of how hard it is to meet spiritual benefactors, thinking of spiritual benefactors as the source from which the jewels of knowledge of the 10 powers are obtained, thinking of spiritual benefactors as the source of vision of inexhaustible knowledge, thinking that the growth of the sprouts of goodness depends on spiritual benefactors, thinking that the door of omniscience is revealed by spiritual benefactors, thinking that the way to enter the ocean of great knowledge is pointed out by spiritual benefactors, thinking that the accumulation of the store of omniscience is fostered by spiritual benefactors. Sudana went up to Avalokiteshvara. So I love it so much. My own first spiritual benefactor I met by going all the way to India and coming back to New York and then going to New Jersey. That's so funny. The enlightening being Avalokiteshvara, seeing Sudana approaching in the distance, said, "Welcome, you who have set out on the incomparable, lofty, inconceivable great vehicle, intending to save all beings who are oppressed by various firmly rooted miseries and have no refuge, seeking to directly experience all the teachings of Buddhas, which are beyond all worlds, incomparable and immeasurable. You are filled with the energy of great compassion, determined to liberate all sentient beings, directed toward the practice of the vision of universal good, intent on purifying the sphere of great vows, born of the ocean of knowledge of Manjushri, correctly proceeding on the instructions of spiritual benefactors, with the tireless will to build up roots of goodness, seeking to retain the multitudes of teachings of Buddhas, imbued with the energy of the light of concentration, seeking samadhi, seeking to keep in mind the teachings of all Buddhas, thrilled with the joy of the vision of Buddhas, your mind expanded by the incalculable energy of achievement of virtue, wishing to expand to others the power of the measure of omniscience to which you have access through your own mystic knowledge, determined to sustain the energy of light of knowledge of Buddhas, firmly rooted in the power of great compassion. Magnificent compassion. Compassion that perceives no object, because it fills everything. Then Sudana went up to Avalokiteshvara, paid his respects, and said, "Noble one, I have set my mind on supreme perfect enlightenment, but I do not know how to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings. I hear you give enlightening beings instruction, and I ask you to tell me how to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings." Avalokiteshvara said, "It is good that you aspire to supreme perfect enlightenment. I know a way of enlightening practice called undertaking great compassion without delay, which sets about impartially guiding all sentient beings to perfection, dedicated to protecting and guarding sentient beings by communicating knowledge to them through all media, established impartial guiding to perfection, dedicating to protecting and guiding sentient beings by communicating knowledge to them through all media, yes. Established in this method of enlightening practice, undertaking great compassion without delay, I appear in the midst of the activities of all sentient beings without leaving the presence of all Buddhas, and take care of them by means of generosity, kind speech, beneficial actions, and cooperation. I also develop sentient beings by appearing in various forms. I gladden and develop them by purity of vision of inconceivable forms, radiating auras of light. And I take care of them and develop them by speaking to them according to their mentalities, and by showing conduct according to their inclinations, and by magically producing various forms, and by teaching them teachings commensurate with their various interests, and by inspiring them to begin to accumulate good qualities, by showing them projections according to their mentalities, by appearing to them as members of their own various races and conditions, and by living together with them. Perfecting this practice of unhesitating compassion, I have vowed to be a refuge for all sentient beings, to free them from fears of calamity, threat, confusion, bondage, attacks on their lives, insufficiency of means to support life, inability to make a living, ill repute, the perils of life, intimidation by the crowd, death, miserable conditions, unknown hardships, servitude, separation from loved ones, living with the uncongenial, physical violence, mental violence, sorrow, and depression. I have undertaken a vow to be a refuge for all beings from all these fears and perils. I have also caused a way of remembrance to appear in all worlds, to extinguish the fears of all beings. I have caused my name to be known in all worlds, to drive away the fears of all beings. Avalokita. I have caused the caring God. I have caused the tranquility of all beings in endless form to appear in my body, to communicate to all beings individually according to the time. By this means, I release beings from all fears, inspire them to seek supreme enlightenment, and cause them never to regress in the attainment of the qualities of Buddha. I have only attained this way of enlightening practice through unhesitating great compassion. How can I know the practice or tell of the virtues of the universally good enlightening beings who have perfected the vows of all enlightened ones, who have gone the way of the practice of the universally good enlightening being, who are uninterrupted streams of performance of good works, who are always focused on the perception of the concentration of enlightening beings, who continue their practice without deviation or regression through all ages, who continuously adapt to the times everywhere, who are familiar with the changing currents in all worlds, who continuously work to extinguish all sentient beings' bad thoughts and to increase their good thoughts, who continuously work to turn all sentient beings away from the repetitious circle of the mundane world. Then this was said. I don't know who said it. Perhaps it reverberated in the diamond, from the diamond rocks, because it says, then this was said. It didn't say, then he said. In verse, having respectfully rendered honor and praise, Sudana well-controlled, went south. On a cliff of a mountain he saw Avalokiteshvara, the seer who abides in compassion. On a diamond slope adorned with jewels, sitting on a lion's seat on a lotus calyx, the steadfast, surrounded by various creatures and enlightening beings, expounds the teaching to them. Seeing this, Sudana, his joy unequaled, went and bowed to the feet of the ocean of virtue and said, teach me, noble one, with compassion to attain this good conduct. Extending his undefiled arm of 100-fold auspicious splendor, radiating far-reaching pure light, Avalokiteshvara, the purified being, the sage, laid his hand on Sudana's head and spoke, I know a gate of liberation, the embryo of knowledge, of clouds of compassion of all Buddhas, born of my own love and operating everywhere to protect and care for all beings. I protect all beings from many disasters, those caught in the grip of enemies, physically injured and imprisoned, or freed from their bonds on hearing my name. Arrows shot at the condemned and do not wound them. Weapons break and swords are deflected if they remember my name. In disputes among kings, those who remember my name defeat their adversaries and gain what is good, increase in repute among friends and relatives, and their property becomes inviolable. Any who remember my name go without fear to forests infested with bandits and wild animals, conquering all enemies. For those who are thrown from a mountain into burning coals by malefactors to harm them, the flames become lotus sprouts in a pond of water if they remember my name. Thrown into the sea, they will not die, nor will they be swept away by a river or burned in fire. No harm will come to them, but rather benefit instead if they remember my name, even for a while. From fetters, chains, and beatings, scorn, humiliation, and constraint, abuse, whipping, threats, and scolding. Those who remember my name will gain release. The inimical fault finders, those who always maliciously slander, become friendly on sight when they hear my name remembered. Evil magicians trying to kill them are appeased, and no poison can injure those who remember my name. Malicious spirits, fiends, demons, and goblins, life-zapping, dangerous, all are quelled even in dreams once my name is recalled. One will not be separated from family and friends, or be joined with the unfriendly, or become materially destitute if one remembers my name even for a while. Those who remember my name will not go to hell, or become animals or ghosts, or fall into other unfavorable states. They will be reborn in celestial or human, purified beings. People remembering my name will not be blind, deaf, or infirm. They will not be violent, but friendly and sound in mind and body for countless ages. Those who scatter a handful of flowers over me, calling my name, go to my refuge of bliss. Those who give me offerings with a clear mind will be worthy of receiving offerings in my Buddha field, in my Buddha land, in my Buddha verse. Purified beings passing away are born here, face to face with the Buddhas of all worlds. Those who remember my name see the Buddhas and hear their teaching. By this and infinite other means and arts, I guide sentient beings in the world. I have developed one liberation and cannot know all the virtues of the virtuous. Sudana has attended spiritual benefactors in the worlds of the 10 directions, and he has not tired of hearing the teaching of the offspring of Buddhas. Why would joy not arise while hearing the teaching? At that moment, an enlightening being named Ananyagamin descended from the eastern sky and stood on the top of the mountain range surrounding this world of the Potalaca. As soon as he set foot on the mountain, the whole world quaked and appeared to be made of jewels. The body of that enlightening being gave off such a light that the sun and moon were overwhelmed. The lights of all realms of being, fire, jewels, and stars were obscured. The great hells were lit up. The dark recesses of the realms of animals and ghosts were illumined. All ills and miseries were allayed. Sentient beings were not bound, causing clouds of all kinds by addictions, and all sorrows ceased. Sentient beings were not bound by addictions, and all sorrows ceased. He also appeared to go to the Buddha, causing clouds of all kinds of offerings, jewels, flowers, perfumes, garlands, robes, parasols, banners, to reign all over the Buddha land. And he also appeared reflected in the abodes of all beings, appearing to them so as to please them according to their inclinations. And he also appeared to have come to the enlightening being Avalokiteshvara on the peak of Mount Potalaca. Then Avalokiteshvara said to Sudana, "Do you see the enlightening being Ananyagamin in this assembly?" Sudana said, "Yes." Avalokiteshvara said, "Go to Ananyagamin and ask him how to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings." So then Sudana paid his respects to Avalokiteshvara and went away and departed. Beautiful. So that was the dedication. Avalokiteshvara was fulfilling for Sudana the dedication. Just to remind you, when you go back and look at the 10 dedications, according to all sentient beings, the dedication of according to all sentient beings. And now Ananyagamin, because he's one who goes not elsewhere, Ananyagamin goes to no other, Ananyagamin, that means. So he's everywhere, in other words. And he came to the Potalaca in a way to invite, because also he was always there, that means, because Ananyagamin is everywhere. So then Sudana saw the enlightening being Ananyagamin and realized the dedication characteristic of true thusness. And thusness means the complete interfusion of voidness and relativity. That's what thusness is. Because when voidness and relativity are infused, when you see something, you realize of its illusory nature that it is only thus, it is only like itself, because you also feel the clear light of the voidness in the thing. You see it, and the air between you, the space between you and what you see, is also the clear light, and you are the clear light. So it is like you are completely one with that in the seeing of it. So therefore it is that is called thusness. So you are sort of like you, the thing you see is like the thing, the act of seeing is like the act of seeing, because it's a projection, it's illusory, it is not deviating 1 inch, 1 ounce, 1 instant, 1 millisecond, 1 milliparticle from pure energy of clear light. We are completely suffused with it, which is the reality body of all Buddhas as well. Okay, so then Sudana goes to number 26, to number 28, Ananyagamin. Then Sudana, with Avalokiteshvara's verse of knowledge in mind. That's the unhesitating compassion. By the way, that reminds me, just in a bit of commentary, because I am just having the joy of reading McCaskill, as far as first name, McCaskill's book called What We Owe the Future, talking about the long-termism, and beginning with the amazing imagination of being every living being that has ever lived, which is like a Buddha. He doesn't even know that, I don't think. But he knows it in his bones, maybe, but not in his reading. Great philosopher in England. But he says that he starts you with an imagination that you personally have been every single being that has ever lived. Doesn't matter time, if there are millions of them at the same time, you're all of them. And you're specifically all of them one by one. And you will be all of those in the future. He makes imagination like that. So you imagine being an infinite Buddha, actually, without him using the word. But there is one thing. He gets kind of paralyzed, I'm afraid, with this long-termism, or you can get paralyzed. I don't think he does. I haven't read it far enough to know for sure. And I will, because I honor him for his initial visualization, which is amazing to me. Just completely from a secular world. He doesn't know, he uses the word incarnation or reincarnate, but he doesn't, of course, believe in the individuals continuously reincarnating as themselves in the samsara. But I don't think, maybe, who knows. But in any case, unhesitating compassion is Avalokiteshvara. And that means right away. You don't wait for, yes, you are helping all the beings in the future too. Sure, that's long term, but it's long term by right now doing, because all this future is in the right now with anyone. So the unhesitating is very important. This is like Asanga, when he met the sick dog with the happy maggots in its flesh. And he could have sat back and said, well, how many dogs will I help if I do this and that, and how will I do? And how many other beings who are not dogs, and so on and so forth, when they become human. He didn't sit back and reflect like that. He immediately helped that dog. He cut his own flesh to help the maggots, actually. And then he ran around thinking everybody else would want to help the dog, but they just saw a sick dog as something other than themselves. One elderly lady saw a foot of the Buddha Maitreya, because the dog was the next Buddha Maitreya, in fact. As it turns out. That's a whole story I'm not telling here because I'm reading the Flower Ornament. But my point is, it just brought up to me this unhesitating compassion of Avalokiteshvara. That is the one we have been given by his incarnation, the Holiness of the Dalai Lama, and another incarnation, the Karmapa, and the many other incarnations. We have been given this. It is instant kindness, and that is helping the infinite future number of human beings. Not only on this planet also are human beings. Long-termism gets lost in the sutra we read where he's counting the numbers. And then the numbers just go oceanic, which is a number. It's the ocean. And so you just get lost there. But it's all here in the immediate, actually, already. So don't worry. Just be kind. Be compassionate. He is, I think. I'm not saying anything, but I know there's a version of long-termism where you kind of get paralyzed in the immediate. Okay, by being too respectful of time, you know. So now he comes to Ananyagamin. So he says, paying his respects to Ananyagamin, Sudana said, "Noble one, O noble one, I have set my mind on supreme perfect enlightenment, but I do not know how to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings. I hear you give enlightening beings instructions, so please tell me how an enlightening being is to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings." By the way, Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. So Samyak Sambodhi. So Samyak he's translating as supreme. But you know, I like to translate Samyak as real and realistic. When you say supreme, you again are thinking of Buddhahood as something beyond you, beyond everything. And perfect also makes you think that way. And realistic is very good because that Buddhahood is in the midst of all of this. Now remember, non-duality. So I think I might want to say realistic for this. If it's Parama, I wouldn't say that. But if it's Samyak Sambuddha, Samyak Sambuddha, if it's Samyak, I would want to say realistic perfect enlightenment. Okay? But I do not know how to learn. So noble one, O noble one, I have set my mind on supreme perfect enlightenment, but I do not know how to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings. I hear you give enlightening beings instructions, so please tell how an enlightening being is to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings. And remember, he saw Ananyagamin, and when he first saw him, the whole world quaked and appeared to be made of jewels. And his body of Ananyagamin gave off such a light that the sun and moon were overwhelmed. The lights of all realms of being, fire, jewels, and stars were obscured. The great hells were lit up. The dark recesses of the realms of animals and ghosts were illumined. All ills and miseries were allayed. Sentient beings were not bound by their addictions, and all sorrows ceased. He already saw that on Pottalaka, because it's happening everywhere by Ananyagamin. Anyway, Ananyagamin said, "This point is hard for celestial, human, and titanic beings." Those are the anti-gods. For monks, asuras, for monks and priests to know, being the power of an enlightening being, the unregressing energy of an enlightening being, the accomplishment of the energy of an enlightening being. It cannot be heard or retained or believed in or comprehended by those who are not under the tutelage of spiritual benefactors, who are not under the attention of Buddhas, who have no accumulated roots of goodness, who have not purified their intentions, who have not attained the faculties of enlightening beings, who do not have the eye of wisdom. Sudana said, "Please tell me, O noble one, I will believe, I will have faith by the empowerment of Buddhas and the assistance of spiritual benefactors." Ananyagamin said, "I came from the Buddha verse of a Buddha named, born of universal light, in a world to the east called full of light, maybe Arcturus. I attained the enlightening liberation, speeding forth in all directions at the feet of that Buddha. As many aeons as atoms in untold Buddha lands have passed since I left that world full of light. With each thought I take as many steps as atoms in untold Buddha lands, and with each step I pass as many Buddha verses as atoms in untold Buddha lands, in all of which are Buddhas. I go to all those Buddhas and honor each Buddha with the finest mentally produced offerings, stamping with the cosmic seal that has no formation, approved by the Buddhas, pleasing to all enlightening beings. I also observe the oceans of sentient beings in all the worlds, penetrate their minds, discern their faculties, and appear to them bodily in accord with their inclinations and interests. speak of the teaching, radiate auras of light, and provide them with various material necessities. I adapt my form for them, ceaselessly striving to guide them to perfection. And just as I proceed in the east, so do I also proceed in the south, west, north, northeast, southeast, southwest, northwest, the nadir and the zenith, the 10 directions. I only do know this enlightening liberation, speeding in all directions. How can I know the practice or tell of the virtue of the enlightening beings who go everywhere, who face in all directions, who are in the realm of unfragmented knowledge, whose bodies are distributed evenly throughout all universes, who adapt their action to all sentient beings according to the inclinations and interests of those beings, whose bodies pervade all lands, who act in accord with the way things really are, who have realized the equality of past, present, and future, who accord with the equality of all places, who illumine the paths of all beings, who do not have arbitrary notions of Buddhahood, who go along all paths without attachment or obstruction, who stand on the path of non-reliance. South of here is a city called Dvaravati, where the celestial Mahadeva lives. Go ask him how to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings. So Sudana paid his respects to the enlightening being, Ananyagamin, and he went on. Now, number 29, Mahadeva, where Sudana goes to the next one, who's a god. Actually, he says celestial. Tom likes to translate celestial rather than a god. So Sudana went to Dvaravati, saw the celestial Mahadeva, and realized dedication without bondage or attachment. So that's the 9th dedication, perhaps. And in this place, Dvaravati, possessing a door, it means there's a great door of access to liberation and enlightenment. Okay, so Mahadeva, his mind and this dedication, the dedication of, it's so hard to remember anything at my age, dedication free of bondage and attachment. I need that, not to be attached to the happy ending, not to be attached to everyone's freedom, not to be attached to their Buddhahood, because they will get it anyway. And especially, I can help them better if I'm not attached. His mind following the far-reaching practice, because being attached to it means I'm seeing them as not enlightened, and I'm somehow projecting that, and that's imprisoning of everyone. His mind following the far-reaching practice of enlightening beings, eager to embody the sphere of knowledge of the enlightening being, Ananyagamin, seeing the excellence of the qualities of the realm of exercise of great mystic knowledge, guiding himself with the armor of steadfast vigor, full of joy, his mind on the freedom of the inconceivable liberation, accomplishing the virtue of enlightening beings, practicing concentration, establishing mental command, entering into vows, learning powers of analysis and expression, bringing forth power, Sudana went to the city of Dvaravati and asked for Mahadeva. The people of the city told Sudana, the Mahadeva is in a temple at the crossroads in the city, expounding the teaching in a giant body. Sudana then went to Mahadeva, paid his respects, and said, Noble one, O noble one, I have set my mind on supreme realistic enlightenment, but I do not know how to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings. I hear that you give enlightening beings instruction and wish you would tell me how to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings. Then the celestial Mahadeva extended 4 hands in 4 directions, brought water from the oceans with extreme speed, and washed his face. He scattered golden flowers over Sudana and said, Enlightening beings are hard to get to see, extremely hard to get to hear. They rarely appear in the world, being so exalted. They are supreme lotuses of humanity, saviors of the world, refuges for the world, reliances for the world. They are great suns, makers of light for sentient beings, the ones who show the path of safety and peace to those on the path of delusion. They are guides to the truth, leaders on the way to the citadel of omniscience. I think killer of wrong views is the name for enlightening beings, in that they manifest themselves to those whose minds are undefiled. They appear before those whose deeds are pure. They imbue those who are free from evils of speech with the light of eloquence, and at all times they stand before those whose intentions are purified. Son, I have attained an enlightening liberation called cloud net. Sudana asked, what is the sphere of this cloud net liberation? At that moment, the celestial Mahadeva manifested a heap of gold the size of a mountain before Sudana, as well as a heap of silver, a heap of lapis lazuli, a heap of crystal, a heap of coral, a heap of emeralds, a heap of starry jewels, a heap of clear jewels, a heap of radiant jewels, a heap of jewels with facets facing in all directions, a heap of crown jewels, a heap of varicolored jewels, a heap of necklaces, a heap of earrings, a heap of bracelets, a heap of belts, a heap of anklets, a heap of various kinds of flowers, fragrances, incenses, garlands, unguents, aromatic powders, robes, parasols, banners, pennants, musical instruments, and all objects of desire. He then said to Sudana, take of these and give gifts, do good works, make offerings to Buddhas, take care of beings by generous giving, get them to practice transcendent relinquishment, teach the world by giving, show relinquishment, which is hard to do. In the same way as I give you all these goods, so also do I make relinquishment habitual in countless sentient beings whose sense of generosity is not repressed. Having gotten them to plant roots of goodness with the Buddha, the teaching and the community, and spiritual benefactors, I get them to aspire to supreme perfect enlightenment, realistic perfect enlightenment. Furthermore, to those who are intoxicated with the enjoyment of objects of desire, who are very greedy for the enjoyment of objects, I make objects appear impure. To those filled with anger, those who are arrogant, conceited, proud, and haughty, those who should be led away from strife, I show terrors like friends and ghouls who feed on flesh and blood, and show them that it is all the vehemence of arrogance. To those who are lazy, does he please, Mahadeva, show that to Putin. To those who are lazy and negligent, I show the dangers of fire, water, kings, and brigands, to stir them to vigor and diligence. Thus, with various appropriate arts and means, I turn them away from bad conduct and get them to develop good qualities, to destroy all impediments to the transcendent ways, the 10 transcendent ways, to make the necessary preparations for the transcendent ways, to cross over all the precipitous paths and the mountains of barriers to enlightenment, and to enter the unobstructed state. I only do know this cloud net enlightening liberation. How can I know the practice or tell the virtues of the enlightening beings who are like the celestial chief Indra, crushing the titans of affliction, who are like water, extinguishing the fire of suffering of all beings, who are like heat, evaporating the water of craving of all beings, who are like wind, shattering the mountains of all attachments, who are like thunderbolts, rending asunder the mountain of the congealed notion of self. South of here, at the site of enlightenment in the region of Magadha, in Jambudvipa, lives an earth goddess named Stavara. Go ask her, that means the stable one, go ask her how to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings. So then Sudana paid his respects to Mahadeva and went on. So Sudana paid his respects to Mahadeva and went on. Now he comes to the last of the 10 dedications, the goddess Stavara, which is the infinite dedication, and it is so wonderful, typical of the flower ornament, that the most infinite one comes back to the earth, because Stavara is the name of Mother Earth again. We're back to Mother Earth with Stavara. She is Mother Earth. So she's the 10th dedication, because she's the place where the Bodhisattvas in this world then enter into the 10 stages. So we come to the earth. So then Sudana went to the earth goddess Stavara at the site of enlightenment in Magadha, which is back to where Sudana's entry of reality happened in Magadha, began. And he looped to the south, and then suddenly he's back in Magadha and Vulture Peak with the infinite dedication. 100,000 earth goddesses said to one another, "Someone comes who will be a refuge for all sentient beings. A vessel of enlightenment comes who will break the shell of ignorance of all sentient beings. One who springs from the family of spiritual sovereigns comes who will put on the turban of unattached supreme purity of a spiritual sovereign. A hero bearing the mighty thunderbolt of knowledge comes who will destroy the weapons of all false teachers." That is Sudana. They are announcing Sudana. Then those earth goddesses led by Stavara caused the earth to tremble, made the ocean roar, illumined the whole universe with a glorious light, and with bodies adorned with all kinds of jewelry, like bundles of lightning bolts descended from the sky, emerged from the surface of the earth, with all tree sprouts growing, all flowering trees blooming, all rivers flowing, all lakes and ponds rising, fragrant rains showering, great winds bearing flowers, billions of musical instruments playing, celestial palaces, ornaments and tiaras appearing, bulls, elephants, tigers, and lions roaring, the lords of the gods, titans, serpents, and spirits thundering, mountains crashing together, and hundreds of billions of treasuries surfacing. Then the earth goddess said to Sudana, "Welcome. This is a spot of ground where you have planted roots of goodness, which I have witnessed. Do you want to see the results in one place?" Sudana paid his respects to the goddess and said, "I do." Then the goddess, touching the earth with the sole of her foot, caused it to appear adorned with hundreds of billions of deposits of countless jewels, and said to Sudana, "These billions of treasuries of jewels accompany you and are at your service to be used as you wish. They have been produced as a result of your good works and are preserved by the power of your good works. Take of them and do whatever should be done." I have attained an enlightening liberation. She continues to speak. I have attained an enlightening liberation called Unassailable Asylum of Knowledge. That's Mother Earth. She's a sage, in addition to a goddess and a bodhisattva and a Buddha. Having attained this liberation, I have constantly stayed by and protected the enlightening being Vairochana since the time of Dipankara Buddha. Since then, I have observed the enlightening being's mental activity, entered his sphere of knowledge and all his vows, followed his purification of enlightening practice, gone along into all concentrations, pervaded the vastness of the mind of the mystic knowledges of all enlightening beings, and have comprehended, remembered, and taken in his mastery of the powers of all enlightening beings, his insuperability like that of all enlightening beings, his pervasion of the network of all lands, his reception of the prediction of enlightenment from all Buddhas, his manifestation of attainment of enlightenment in all times, his way of activating all the cycles of the teaching, the doctrines expounded in all the scriptures, his way of revealing the vista of the great teaching, his way of knowing how to lead all sentient beings to perfection, and his way of manifesting all the miracles that Buddhas perform. I attained this, what I call unassailable asylum of knowledge, enlightening liberation, from the Buddha skillful guide in the world moon banner aeons ago, more aeons than the number of atoms in the polar mountain, in an aeon called supernal manifestation of light. Going in and out of this unassailable asylum of knowledge, liberation, and causing it to expand and broaden, I have always been seeing Buddhas. going in and out of this unassailable asylum of knowledge liberation and causing it to expand and broaden. I have always been seeing Buddhas, continuing up to this aeon of virtue in the present, and now I have propitiated as many Buddhas as any atoms in untold Buddha lands, and I have seen the spiritual transformations of all those Buddhas when they came to the sight of enlightenment, and I have witnessed all those Buddhas' roots of goodness. I know only this enlightening liberation, unassailable. I do know only this enlightening liberation, unassailable asylum of knowledge. How can I know the practice or tell the virtues of the enlightening beings who attend all Buddhas, who remember the tales of all the Buddhas, who have entered the recondite knowledge of all Buddhas, who speed through the cosmos in a moment of thought, who are physically equal to the Buddhas, who are undefiled receptacles of the mind of all Buddhas, who have always effected the birth of all Buddhas, who are envoys physically indivisible from all Buddhas. In this country, Magadha, in Jambudvipa, is a city called Kapilavastu, where a night goddess named Vasanti lives. Go ask her how to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings. So then Sudana paid his respects to the earth goddess Stavara and went on. And so we dedicate, by the way, this is so interesting because Stavara and the countless infinite numbers of earth goddesses who in her retinue, they could clean this planet instantly with earthquakes and turn everything into jewels, satisfy all the greedy people, and then put people back into spiritual focus by having all prosperity for everyone and so on. She could do that herself right away. And she shows that she does it here. And she shows Sudana that she can do it. And she places all of her energies and all her treasuries and all her food. Of course, the jewels also include the jewels of food and plenty and air and clear water and clean earth and everything. And so it could happen in an eye blink if we would only turn our minds, all of us together. But we are being put in this situation where Mahadeva is manifesting all these hardships to us to force us to turn our minds in this way. All of us, not just any of them, one of us. As Thich Nhat Hanh said, he would reincarnate as a beloved community of interbeing humans and animals, and with kindness toward animals and everyone. It's really wonderful. It's really great. So I dedicate the merit to the turning that we will soon see on this planet, that we must see, that the planet herself affects through us, and we ourselves affect through opening to her with love. So we dedicate to the rapid Buddhahood of all beings, equal to ourselves, all of us together, becoming enlightened and free and happy and joyful. That's what we dedicated to.